Okay guys, so in this video we're going to talk about Spirit Airlines, ticker symbol SAVE. So I received a comment asking me about what I thought about Spirit Airlines and my video on the top 3 best airline stocks to buy right now. So I'm going to address that comment right now and tell you what I think about Spirit Airlines. So for me personally, Spirit Airlines hasn't really been on my radar because it's one of the smaller airlines out there. The company doesn't even do $4 billion a year, and their current market cap is under $1 billion. So, in a situation like this where we're dealing with the coronavirus and stuff of that matter, I'm kind of focused on companies that I think are more likely to survive this mess because there could be some airlines that really struggle, and there could be some mergers and things like that, just like what happened during the last financial crisis that we had. A lot of airlines did not really. There was some mergers and things like that. So, just to give you guys a background, if you're not really familiar with Spirit Airlines, I just want to talk a bit about it. So, what I like to do, I like to head over to the latest earnings release that provides a lot of background information on the company. So, as you can see here, it says Spirit Airlines is committed to delivering the best value in the sky. They are the leader in providing customizable travel options starting with an unbundled fare. This allows our guests to pay only for options they choose, like bags, seat assignments, and refreshments. So basically, it's like a really cheap airline for people that don't want to pay all these extra fees and things like that, where airlines like Delta and United are much more expensive. This is kind of the cheaper budget option. So it also says that they operate more than 600 daily flights to 77 destinations in the US, Latin America, and Caribbean. So guys, they are not nearly as big an airline as Delta or United. They don't have nearly as many international destinations like going to Europe and stuff like that. They're very, very focused on the North American and North America, Central America, basically in the West. They're focused on the Western world, and they're not really expanding that far out of it, which is good because they have their core market and things like that. So they are just addressing a small segment. So this is an airline where I think that is obviously going to be struggling based on the lockdown, but there are a couple good things about Spirit Airlines. So I just want to show you guys how much revenue they did. So in over 2019 year ended, they did just over $3 billion in revenue. Now that is a lot smaller than some other airlines like Delta is doing over 40 billion and things like that. But all of these airlines are going to have to receive bailouts because with the lockdown and airports basically closed, they're not earning any revenue. So I mentioned earlier in some earlier videos the details about the CARES Act, how these airline companies were getting bailed out. So when you see all these things talking about their earnings and their revenue are going to grow 10%, you can basically throw those numbers out of the window because no one knows exactly how hard these companies are going to get hit until they actually report earnings in the next couple of weeks. So Okay, so they are reporting earnings on April 23rd, so that is just in around 11 days. So we should find out some more news on this stock. So what I want to do is I want to talk a bit more about why I am not really interested in Spirit Airlines other than for a potential short-term trade because I think they're just some better long-term buys now. Now we have to remember that most of these airlines, in order to receive the CARES Act, they had to suspend their share buybacks and suspend their dividends. So make sure you guys, if you see some of these stocks, it doesn't seem like they've updated the numbers and Yahoo Finance and stuff like that. These stocks are not paying a dividend right now. So for me, this is obviously reducing a lot of the benefits of owning airline stocks in the first place because most of these stocks were paying dividends. So now we're having to basically deal on valuations without that passive income coming in. So as you can see, Spirit Airlines, I'm taking a look at the 1-month chart, and they basically had a similar trajectory as American Airlines, which I reported in an earlier video, but another stock that I am not a long-term buyer of simply because in this time I want quality, and me myself personally, I'm going to be going through my portfolio and selling off lower quality companies to get a bigger stake in higher quality ones. So as we can see here, we bounced off of support at around $10, and we now have short-term resistance at around $18. So this is kind of interesting because based on the Trump's bailout and things like that, stocks have been rallying in general. So now the question is the stock a buy? Well, if you were to do a short-term trade, you would probably want to be selling right around the $18 mark, because that's where resistance has come in, and we don't know exactly how Wall Street and investors are going to respond to these earnings. This is the next 10 to 20 days are going to be very, very important, because people really want to know how bad is the damage. And all of these companies have lowered their Q1 and their Q2 earnings um, numbers, projections already, in anticipation of things being pretty bad. So for me, to invest in this stock, there are a few positives, and probably the biggest positive for me is that I feel like companies that have a lot of debt are the ones that are going to be struggling the most, because when you're dealing with a large debt amount and you have really basically 90% less revenue coming in, you are going to have to obviously make payments on that debt. And depending on how long it takes for the revenue to come back, and there's no dividend payments, a lot of the benefits and a lot of the reasons why people were buying airline stocks in the first place have been thrown out of the window. So one thing I want to show you guys, I want to go to Spirit Airlines balance sheet, which I thought was actually not as bad as I thought it would be, seeing that the market cap is at around under $1 billion, only 783 million. And if we take a look at their balance sheet numbers, we see that the company only holds around $3 billion in debt and $1 billion in cash. So the company should be able to stay afloat and should survive due to the getting the bailouts and things like that. But they don't have a lot of debt, so that's a good thing. I think if you guys are looking to invest in this stock in the long term, that's got to be a positive. Now I want to go to some of the negative reasons why for me this is a sell. This is not a stock that I want to own for the long term. The only thing I would be interested in would be a short-term trade. So I know if you guys have been watching my videos for some time, you know how I don't like catching a fall in life, and I'm going to say this again and again and again, because I really think it is just and really important concept to think about. So if we take a look here, we can just blow up this chart a little bit bigger so we can get a long-term visualization of the price action here. When I'm looking for long-term investments, I'm looking for slow, gradually upsloping charts. And the reason is because I don't necessarily want to buy a stock that's going to shoot up right away, because usually stocks that shoot up fast come down as fast when the stock goes up to a high point. Those people that bought it much lower, they're looking to take profits because they realize that what goes up must come down, if it's going very fast. So if we take a look at this long-term chart, we can see that Spirit Airlines has basically been on basically on a downward trend since 2014, and that's not a good sign. Saying is that most stocks from 2014 up and right before the coronavirus news kind of broke out throughout the world, most of these stocks were rallying to crazy valuations. If you think of stocks like Apple, if you think of stocks like Google, if you think of stocks like Amazon, these stocks were going crazy over the last 6 years. And Spirit Airlines has been on a slow downtrend. So if we take a look at this peak here and look where we are now, we can see that the stock has basically lost well more than 75% of its value. So now I also want to show you guys something else that's very helpful for me, and something I'm going to be mentioning more. I use this a lot, and I like to look at it if I'm thinking about long-term investments. So I want to head over to now, if you guys aren't familiar with Morningstar, they're basically like Yahoo Finance, except for it's just not as popular. But what they do is they provide a tab on any stock. So if you just go to Morningstar and type in the ticker symbol, you'll find this part right here. It's returns. So what is trailing returns? Well, trailing returns basically tells you how much return, total return, investment return, any stock has generated over a time period. So as you can see here, airlines in general haven't really been doing that well over the last 10 years, and over the last 5 years, the average airline stock in general has lost about 10% per year. Now, obviously, a lot of those losses were within the last 2 months or so, but if you take a look at Spirit Airlines, they've lost 28% annually per year over the last 5 years. So for me, it's just anytime a stock is losing more than the industry average, that's a warning sign for me. So that's why I'm really not interested in this stock long term. I think if you're going to invest in an airline stock, I think the best one to go with is Southwest Airlines. It's just much more upside there, and just a much more stable company. They seem to survive any financial downturns or things like that. So going back to the chart, May perhaps some of you are interested in a short-term trade. Well, what I would say is if I were trading this short-term, okay, so if I were personally trading this stock, I would be probably looking to take profits right around the $18 mark because we just simply know how the market is going to react to earnings in 11 days on April 23rd. And guys, the markets are always acting emotionally based on earnings reports, news releases, and things like that, and dollars in just a couple of weeks. So we got a couple levels here. We have, some we have $20 here and $18 here. So these are two levels I would think that I would be looking to sell into. I wouldn't try to get too greedy with airline stocks. I think that the markets are going much lower in the short term. I just don't see where this rally is coming from. Yes, there's been a stimulus, but we are still in a global recession, and earnings are going to be bad. So, do I expect stocks to keep going up when the earnings reports are reporting these companies are losing money hand over fist? No. But I think that if you're looking for a long-term investment, for me, this is a sell. I'm not interested in this in Spirit Airlines. I think there's just some better options out there. I'm going to do a follow-up video on all of these airline stocks as they start reporting earnings in the next couple of weeks. Really interesting to see which airlines typically lost the most money. Obviously losing money, but doing much better than expected. That's probably where a lot of the institutional money is going to flow. So be sure to look out for that earnings report. If you guys own this stock, Spirit Airlines, be sure to circle April 23rd on your calendar and pay close attention to this because we could see some price action happen very, very fast. So I hope it gave you guys some insight on Spirit Airlines. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more coverage on airline stocks. This is probably one of the sectors in the market that a lot of investors are interested in because they're looking for some long-term value here and some short-term profits to be had due to this heavy volatility we're looking at. So that's it for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. For you guys that celebrate Easter, happy Easter out there. Stay safe and take care.